some of his wives, they didn't have a child, but
Yes.
the relationship was a healthy one.
Very good.
So why do we call it like azwaj?
Great
Why do we
question.
attach this thing? And why not imra'a?
Okay, really good question. Before I answer the question, I'll give you a disclaimer. And the disclaimer is the lecture you heard is about 12 years old. I look the same. I learned a little more since the last 12 years. So this is the updated version of that question, okay? Let's begin with language. The word zawj is used not only for man and woman, it's actually used for anything that complements anything else. The sun and the moon are Zaujain. The day and the night are Zaujain. Okay? The male and the female are Zaujain. Anything that completely complements anything else is called a zawj. Okay? So that's the first thing. So zawj is a comprehensive term which can include marriage, but is not limited to marriage. But it certainly does refer to something that is in complete complementary relationship to something else. Okay? Now, the use of the word zawj in the Quran certainly does indicate, like Ash-Sha'rabi rahimahullah among other scholars. This, by the way, this idea that I presented was presented by several ulama of the past, and the more recent explanation that's made simple is by Shaykh Ash-Sha'rabi rahimahullah in his tafsir, which is recorded now and documented. Khair. And the idea was that zawj is something, like you mentioned, wholesome, complementary. The husband and wife get along for good reason. They get along and they do good together, and they have kids in the marriage. And the example given was actually of Zakaria alayhi salam, right? وَوَهَبْنَا لَهُ يَحْيَى وَأَصْلَحْنَا لَهُ زَوْجَهُ, right? So before he was called imra'ati aqiran, before the child, imra'a was used. After the child, zawj was used. Now, let's go further. There is something called divine intervention. Divine intervention. In the case of Adam alayhi salam, he was in Jannah, yes? How long do you live in Jannah? What's your lifespan in Jannah? Forever. You know, the only way your species can survive on the earth, the only way your name can survive on the earth, the only way your genes can survive on the earth is by having what? Children. But Jannah is a place where you survive. So the necessity, any species on the earth cannot survive without what? Children. But in Jannah, the need for having children is not there. It's not there. So a marriage is already complete without children. You understand? So it's understandable that in Jannah, Allah Azza wa Jalla says, Ya Adam uskun anta wa zawjuka. It makes sense because it's already complete. It's in Jannah. In other words, when I say generally speaking, children and complementary, this is what makes a marriage whole in general cases. But there are exceptions. And those exceptions are actually noteworthy. It is the general rule that brings beauty to the exceptions. Now, what are the exceptions? You mentioned one of them. One of them is the Ummahatul Mu'mineen, right? Who didn't have children. And them not having children, especially not having boys, was actually an intervention made by Allah Himself. مَا كَانَ مُحَمَّدٌ أَبَا أَحَدٍ مِّن رِجَالِكُمْ. Number one. Number two, the Rasul ﷺ is the messenger and we cannot question him ever. And his wives are what to us? What are they to us? Oh, so they have children. Yes? Allah calls them our, so the relationship is whole. Got it? All right.